Alright, welcome one and all. I am Addagro, and I will be making a beat today, a hip hop beat. Um, Coming in as always with a blank slate. Actually, can't say that because I do have a loop on the drum pattern, at least a drum pattern set up for it. Um, but at least the rest of the stuff will be pretty empty and everything. So actually, sorry, I was just a little unprepared for today's madness. But let's see here. And actually, I need to change the title because it's not Thanksgiving no more. Change the title. Edit stream info, reason 11. Okay, now add taxes. All right, so I'm updating that, and let's see here. I think that's good for now. Yeah. All right, so let's get back to it. So today, we'll be doing, I guess, another hip hop beat. As I said, always, kind of more used to doing beats for hip hop. So I've been doing it for the past 3 years now. And like I said, most of the stuff, like I said before, most of what I've done is just self-taught stuff. So it's really some basic stuff, a little bit of advanced stuff, but not like crazy, super advanced stuff. I'm not super well versed in music theory. I know some, but mostly just from learning from YouTube videos or other creators and stuff. Um, but yeah, so let's get started. So I already kind of came up with this simple little loop here just for the drum pattern. It's just a simple kind of boom bap style beat. Um, just a little bit of flavor. And actually, what I was gonna work on today was more kind of a funky bass line, or just had to come up with like a more synthy kind of bass line. And so for that, we're gonna get on Europa, which is a built-in soft synth from a Reason. So I'm just gonna move this over to my main screen here. Um, and yeah, so let's get started with a simple. I'm gonna go with a sawtooth wave, because that's typically, a really good one to come up with. And you add a little bit of unison to that, and if you don't know what unison is, essentially just multiplies the wavelength and detunes it ever so slightly, so you get a much fuller sound. So let me play. I just added a detune, a unison, with a 50% detune. I don't know how much in cents that would be because Europa doesn't give you that static. I mean, I'm sorry, that number. Um, but oh, it didn't pick it up. So let me. Sorry, I'm gonna restart my MIDI controller here. Actually, I know what happened. My dumbass went to the wrong thing. I didn't enable it. So here's the sample of example of a sawtooth wave with unison, and here's without it. So it's very, very basic stuff. So I kind of want to go for kind of a spacey vibe to this, kind of more ambient kind of stuff. So let's do the following then. So let's add some unison with detune. Kind of add more. I don't want to blend it as much. And then I'm gonna detune it a little bit more. So it just sounds like more. This is kind of more of a techno-ish lead sound. I'm gonna add some more spread to it. I'm gonna add a little bit of release to it. So now you have okay. Sorry, I was kind of messing around with trying to find a good progression. I think I have something that I kind of like. But yeah, so let's go back to, actually let me write that in, because if not, I'm gonna forget it. If you ever have the opportunity, always write down your melodies or your progressions, because sometimes you forget it and because you get lost in the moment. So actually I think it was like yeah, so All right. So I think that's good for kind of like the pad and like the lead synth here. Essentially, what I did was I added a couple of more oscillators to this. So this is kind of like the sawtooth wave, added some modulation to it, where after a couple seconds you see it turns more into a triangle wave, and it just adds a little bit more movement to the sound. On top of that, I added a lower, or I added a sub oscillator where it's oscillating an octave lower, and this is a sine wave, also with unison that kind of gives it kind of a wavy feeling to it. I also cut down the highs from it so you don't hear any of the high stuff, which is not a lot to begin with because it's still following kind of more of the it's following the sorry, what you call it, the actual notes. So I'm just cutting off like the higher frequencies because I don't really want it to intervene with like the highs that are already on here. And I've actually, if I wanted to, I can go into here and then add a high pass filter. So just kind of to set do a hard difference between the two. But I kind of want to give like the main stage to this primary oscillator, and then just to add some bit more of a flavor to it, I added just like this noise generator, which is white noise, and I have some modulation on it where it's also doing a filter, a band pass filter. So it's cutting out the highs, some of the highs and some of the lows, and then I added some modulation on it where envelope 3 here, when every time the key is being pressed, it will swoop from high to low, and then you hear like you see this kind of movement towards the bottom. You hit like that little laser like kind of noise effect, and added some resonance to it, so it's just kind of just tighten up the like how many highs, how much noise it's gonna let through. So it's not to muddy up the synth lead that I have here. I added some bit of unison, but not a whole lot because I don't want it to be so filling. And then just added a bunch of like essentially just filter it down to where I don't have anymore. And then just added layered on top of each other, so now you have like this interesting sounding synth that is not too harsh on the ears. And right now I haven't really mixed it in all that well, but like once I actually mix it in, I'll probably lower the volume a little bit more. Actually, I can't do that just here, so you can actually hear the drums, and it can be more of a drone in the back end, and then add some reverb to it, so it just kind of, and then maybe some little bit of, there you go. So just like a little bit of reverb, a little bit of delay, and now we've added much more movement to it. And actually, to go back on this, if I really want to, because I kind of want to add a little bit more to it, so let me have LFO2 here modulate the pan of CO here. I should do it every. But I'm not too much where like it's like dead pan on each side. So you can still hear like the lower end drone of it, which is actually what gives it like kind of like the more vibey feeling of it, is actually coming through still. So it's not too distracting. Like you can still kind of like, if I take away like the plucks from it, you can still kind of like hear the just the swelling of the background noise. You can still hear like the main drone of it all, which is kind of what I like. So I like the way this sounds already, so I'm just leave it like that. And I'm actually gonna keep the reverb and the delay here. Because like I said, not too much going on. So let's go back to kind of want to add some more instrumentation to this. And really what I want to do is just kind of add like a bass line that kind of complements this, but that's following the same movement as the lead, and maybe add a little bit more movement. So then let's go here. Mm-hmm. That was kind of cool, but too much. And then for here, because I'm going more higher on the register, I actually want to take this up an octave. No. Yeah. Too drastic of a change. So probably keep it the same, but maybe add some more movement in between, kind of to follow some of the accentuations of the other stuff here. Yeah. It's losing it at the end here. No. Let's add something else to it. And if you already seen my previous things, you know I'm a big fan of like sad strings here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add one of the presets that's on the Reason's NNXT player, which is called Redemption. And essentially it's just like a really kind of sad violin section that's has a long decay, has a pretty long attack, and it just kind of swells and fills in where you would otherwise kind of just fall flat. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna actually keep the same MIDI files or the same MIDI notes here, but I'm gonna take off some of the variation from it, and it's really just gonna copy and paste it here. Kind of want to solo it for right now, just because I want to hear how it sounds like, and maybe lower it in the mix a little bit. All right, and then I just kind of I added an inversion to the last two chords here, essentially just upping things just to change the flavoring of it, just to, like I said, because I've already been adding some of the movement to the bass line and already the lead synth, so just kind of to follow along with that motif of it going from a kind of a dark and monotone kind of, not monotone, but like kind of dark and broody kind of intro to the first half of the verse, to kind of like an uplifting-ish, kind of going out of that like lower tone, like that sad tone. All right. Kind of want to add an arpeggiator to this now. Just a simple art kind of background kind of thing going on. Just because oh, I'm like that. I'm a little weird like that. But let's see. This is a subtractive synth here. Why is it doing? Oh, it's because of this. All right. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna do an oscillator here. Sorry, my phone was ringing. So I'm gonna follow the same thing. Sorry, I gotta take this. All right, sorry for that. Okay, so right now what we're gonna do is gonna add a quick synth arpeggiator here. I kind of want to add maybe something that changes every 6 notes, but I want to have like a pattern where it comes in and then doesn't come back for another couple bars. I don't know, I'm just trying something crazy here. Maybe do this. Let me see. Let me just copy this over. Actually, no, let me copy this top one over. And then I'm gonna raise it an octave here. So raise it an octave. All right, so let's see. So yeah, I think it's an octave higher. I just want to see how it sounds like right now, so I'm gonna solo this. Okay, so all right, and I'm gonna add another one. detune them ever so slightly. Alright, let me lower this because it seems a little loud. Okay. All right, so I went ahead and added that weird sounding synth there. Um, uh, Actually, yeah. So I ended up using Thor, which is another built-in soft synth from Reason, which I've added just 3 oscillators in 3 sawtooth oscillators. One that's the main oscillator, oscillator one, that's an octave lower than the other two, and is tuned correctly, and then the other two are an octave higher, and they're slightly detuned, so you get that unison effect. And also I ran in through 2 format filters. Essentially, that's that thing that makes it kind of sounds like a voice, kind of like the yoi, I, oi, a kind of thing. Um, and both of them are kind of modulated differently. So the top one is modulated by the envelope filter, which is what this is down here. So it's just got a little bit of decay. So it just kind of moves the x coordinate just ever so slightly, and then just takes it back, moves it, and then comes back. So it just goes this back and forth thing. And this one is not being the y-axis is not being oscillated at all. The bottom one, I have the LFO. Uh, which is also, if you don't know any terms, is essentially low frequency oscillator. Essentially too low for you to hear, but you can actually modulate stuff with it. And that's oscillating the y coordinate of the second format filter, and so then it's just kind of giving it that up and down movement. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about format filters and how they work. All I know is that these are the ones that you kind of use to make that voice sounding kind of synth. And I ran them both through a shaper. Essentially, just kind of molds both of the waveforms together, and then outputs the signal out to the amp. And then I have a low pass filter at the end, so just cut off some of the higher frequencies that I don't want. And that's pretty much it. So it has just the sustain to the max, no attack, no decay, and just a little bit of release. So it just kind of lingers on, and just kind of, if you see it by itself, it just kind of still kind of more of a airy, vibey kind of thing. And then the weird oscillation is essentially what the format filters are doing. So it's being used more as kind of more of an addition to what's already going on in the track. So essentially, what I'm doing is just adding another layer of sounds to the track. And it's not super empowering. You saw me, I lowered it quite a bit in the mix, so it's pretty low in the mix compared to some of the other stuff. So it's slower than the violins, it's slower than the bass line, obviously, and it's slower than the lead synth. I also added some tambourines, which is just a loop that's kind of comes with Reason, and I'm using the Dr. Octarex. Is essentially what the looper of the built-in looper of Reason. So I'm not modifying anything on it. So like, if there's I'm kind of more in the camp of like, if you don't need to make your own presets, then you shouldn't have to. Kind of I make a lot of my own stuff, like, I mean, you saw that I made to the synths there. But I'm not opposed to using presets, because sometimes they already have the right sound, and it's good to stumble across some of those sounds every once in a while too when you're making music. It just kind of allows you to be more creative with some of the stuff. And kind of the same thing as like with the violins section. That was a patch that was already built in, so I just kind of put that on there because it already sounds great. I don't need to add any more to it. I don't have to take anything away from it. And just like, but every once in a while you want to make your own stuff. It just makes it sounds a little bit weird. And so I'm kind of okay with making my own sounds, but at the same time I'm okay with using built-in sounds. So to each their own. I know that some people are like, you should make your own sounds all the time. I don't think I don't fall strictly into that band camp. So whatever. To each their own. But and then a lot of it too, if a preset, you can actually modify a lot of the parameters for just adding effects. So with the redemption strings, which is the patch here, you know, adding a little bit of reverb here just changes, like, it makes it more airy. Adding echo to it doesn't add a whole lot to it, but you know, that's an option. You could actually add a bit crusher, and then, or you can add just a different kind of different reverbs, or you can add a chorus. I might keep that actually. Because it kind of goes with the motif of it all going, because it's kind of like synth heavy, kind of sci-fi airy kind of feel to it. So I'll keep that. But yeah, so that's just some of the stuff that I've been doing. I haven't really been doing a whole lot of extra things. As you see, like some of the MIDI sequencing, it's not too crazy. I have two that are pretty distinct. Those are the ones that I originally wrote in, and then two that are just the same. But because this is going through an arpeggiator, it's different. It's a lot different than what this is, and so on and so forth. So you know, you don't have to do a whole lot to get a decent sound from just from the stuff that you already kind of built in. You know, just adding layers to it, and then just adding something else on top of it, or you know, like a player in instance, what Reason calls players, which is essentially just an arpeggiator, which is just taking that MIDI information, and then I'm putting it through a sequencer essentially, and then now it's playing something completely different. That's not something that I wrote in MIDI, but now you have this going on. And then you can export it to MIDI, so that way you can actually keep it the same, or if you want to export it out to a different DAW or whatever, you know, there it is. Or if you want to change certain notes from it, you can do that, which I typically like doing. So now this is kind of more of a backbone kind of thing, where like it's there, and then I'll just export it to MIDI, and then I can go in there and then make changes to the notes, because then I feel like I can make different melodies go with it. So that's kind of what I have so far for, and I think this would be like a verse section of the track essentially. So you have 8 bars going through, right? And it's essentially, you know, a bar essentially, like a verse that you have. Actually, this essentially would be half of a verse, because the verse is 16 typically. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there it is. So you have half of a verse already written out. And then I'm gonna go into here and then just change export the drum sequence to MIDI, so that way I can go in there and modify it. Because that's one of the things I do modify a lot is the drum sequencing, because I typically don't like, I like using the looper, essentially the sequencer, as like kind of a starting off point, but not necessarily to be like the main stay of the track, because sometimes, you know, in order to make changes to the verses or whatever, you want to add or subtract to the drums or to the instrumentation. So typically what I do here is that I actually will export it to MIDI, and then I like separating my different elements. So my my hi-hats on their own, my kicks on their own, and then my snares on their own track. So that way it's easier for me to just go in there and modify it, and then not worry too much about it. So you have here, oh well, let me unmute it, because I had it muted. All right, so here we are. So let me just solo this. So for the first one, I kind of don't want to have that one. I'll keep it for that one. And then same thing with this one. I don't want that one. And then I want to move this one over. Actually, I need to zoom in, because what I want to do, shit, is this? Okay, this is it. Sorry, it's get a little lost sometimes. There it is. So there it is. So I just kind of added a little bit of movement to the bass drum here, or the kick drum, and all I did was essentially just remove a couple of notes, add them somewhere else. That's all I did. So let me copy this, and then, or actually just drag it over. And so now we have our, what would be our 8-bar loop. All right, and then to add a little bit more variety to it, I'll go in and then add some more hi-hats to the track. So typically I'll add them on the second snare. So I'll do there. I actually don't like this one. Maybe here. No. Actually, I'll just leave that. I don't need to add or remove to that. But then once I actually do go into the hook, which I haven't gone to yet, I'll probably make a lot more changes to the actual hi-hats, the snares, the kick drum. I'll keep the same, but then also I will add cymbals and stuff to it. Actually, you can start doing that now. So then, actually, because the hook is 8, so let me join these clips together because they're part of the 4. So I'm duplicate this, and then there's my verse, and then copy it one more time, and then this is gonna be my hook. And then for my hook, I'm gonna add, like I said, I'm gonna add. I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna add a reverse crash. All right, and then I'm gonna add a regular crash. All right, and then that crash is gonna repeat every bar essentially. Well, every other bar on a hook. Oh, excuse me. But I'll also add a couple snare rolls here, just to add, some garden variety to it. So and then here, I should join both of these actually. Now that I think about it, join clips, and then join clips. It just makes it easier for me. So this is gonna be 4 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars, or 8 bars, 8 bars, 8 bars. It just makes it easier to write stuff too. All right, so let's zoom in into here, and essentially doing the same thing on this one. And then for this last one, I'm gonna do it. That's not what I'm gonna do. Tighter snare roll at the end. And then all it does is kind of add to some of the hype of it all. Also, we'll go into here and then just add a couple of hi-hats. Maybe just 1. And then here I'll add 2. And then here I'll add 1. And then here I'll add 2. So we have here, it's just our very basic stuff. Actually, what I'll go ahead and do is actually add a snare here as well. Yeah, so I'll do that. Okay, so I'll just make this change here. So that's a transition to halfway point, essentially. I'm gonna delete the last kick here. It doesn't need it. All right. All right. So let's just add some of that stuff back. So let's just. All right, so I'm gonna add a little bit of automation here. So here we're gonna start off with medium volume and go up to full volume, which is 734. And then I'm also gonna change the hi-hat volume to be different because I'm also having that built up, and that's gonna be from 0 all the way to high volume, which is 624. All right. And then add Alright, so I'm gonna add some bit of my wheel play here. And I'm just gonna draw it in. I'm not gonna stay too long in this. And then down to, again. Actually, I don't know where to. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. Stays there, and then this one drops off. And then so what that's gonna do, if I go into it, so here's our main so there's our so that's our main synth. Now some added some modulation onto this. I forgot to map it. So okay, so this is an interesting, an important thing. So I was gonna add modulation to this, but I'm doing it on the mod wheel. Now the mod wheel on Europa is not actually linked to anywhere unless you actually put it in as a thing that you can modulate. So what I'm gonna have the mod wheel modulate is gonna be the filter here. I'm gonna have it modulate the frequency, and I'm gonna have it go up to like 69 is fine. 69, essentially what it's going to do, essentially it's going to rotate this and open the filter up. But also what I want it to do is that I'm going to have the mod wheel modulate the I was going to have something else, but I can't remember it right now. Well, all right, so let's listen to this. Now you can hear the filter, it's opening up. and it goes back down to this where it was before, and it just adds more movement to it. So and I'm doing that for the hook, obviously, of the track. Now I'm just gonna copy this over to where all the hook portions are. And so then let's, here we go. And so we, so actually what I'm gonna go ahead and do is actually have it modulate the volume down, because if you notice there, the track got that particular section of the track got louder as the filter opened up. So you can't visually see it on the Europa, but you'll notice that the, let me solo it. Yeah, you probably can't tell that much, but essentially what it's doing, it's ducking essentially the sound coming out, and it's lowering the volume so that way when it opens up the filter, it's not overwhelming the rest of the mix. Actually, I might do it a little bit more because I had it set up to pretty high, but I think 44 should be fine. Essentially going in the negative direction. So if you see closely here, it says negative, the mod wheel, as it goes up, the volume goes down. Because if you did it the other way, it's going to raise the gain, it's going to make it even louder, and you don't want that. And that's so far what I'm doing, and essentially that's just one modulation that I'm doing, like in terms of like the mod wheel, that's changing 2 parameters. So that's what this this is really nifty for. So you can have the mod wheel make a lot of changes. Like you can have it change a bunch of stuff. So you can even have it change the shape or whatever. If you want to have it say in a certain way, you can do that. Instead of having to automate every single parameter, which you can do, but it's just more tedious. You can just automate the mod wheel and then just have the mod wheel do a couple of things here and there. You can actually even get crazier with some stuff with, like, you can actually have it like change one of the patterns or something like that. Like some of the presets have some of the more funkier fucking, like some of the crazier things going on. So there's that. I don't know too much about it yet, so to keep messing with that, I just kind of keep it simple. That's another thing, you know, just keep it simple, stupid. Just follow the KISS rule, and you'll get some decent sounds from it. So let's go back to, well, I actually want to listen to the entirety of the thing so I can mix it in properly. Oh, need to make changes to that. So that's actually going to be my tag for the tracks now. Essentially what I'm gonna do first is actually gonna have it come in at the first beat. And in case you guys are curious, that's actually my nephew that did that. He left me a voicemail, and I took it, and I told him, and he doesn't like it, but I don't care. So there's that. So I'm gonna add just a bunch of effects to this. So I'm gonna do. Well, actually, I can just add the. the echo to it on this. So I'm gonna add some reverb, some stuff, and then do this, and then with the solo. Too much. And for the most part, I think the track is mostly complete. Alright, so I'm gonna add a bit of a compressor to it. Gonna lower the threshold. Because what it's doing, I don't like what it's doing. It's getting a little muddy in the low end, so I'm gonna control it just a bit here. Take this off. I don't need it. And then go back to my mix here. Compress it. Release, long release, and update thing. So let's go into here. Sorry. Okay, I think for the most part that's done. So I'm just gonna listen to it one more last time here. Oh, sorry guys. All right, I think I'm gonna call that one done. So yeah, let me save this track. If I had some viewers, I'd probably ask you guys what to name it, but no worries. So yeah, so once again, started off with the semi-blank slate. The only thing that I really had going for it at the beginning was just kind of a basic beat, but not too dissimilar to some of the stuff that I've already done. So I'm gonna call this one Space Water or something. I've been playing a lot of Outer Worlds, so maybe I'll just call it like Spacer's Choice. Yeah, Spacer's Choice. We're gonna save this one as ready for vocals because that's kind of done. So yeah, for the most part, that's pretty much it. Um, if you're ever interested in making some music or doing anything like that, or just getting into the industry or whatever, you know, there's multiple ways of doing it. Um, you can do as I did and then teach yourself how to do a lot of the stuff. Or you can go to school for it, you know, whichever your choice. There's no real wrong path to get into music. The only thing I would probably recommend is to you know, never give up. To always keep trying your hardest. If you really want to go on in the music industry, you know, you have to be you have to have that ambition. You have to have that drive. Because unfortunately, you won't ever get it for just, you know, looking pretty or having a following. Like, definitely that does come into play later down the line. But you know, if you're just following the trend or something like that, then people will not really stick around for too long, or they'll get, you know, a little annoyed of what you might be going with. So the best course of action usually is just like, just keep going and keep going, never give up, never give up. Um, and for the most part, like I said, I'm all self-taught, so everything you saw me play today, even on the keys, that's just something that I just picked up. I didn't go to fancy school. I didn't pay for my its education. All I did was just get on YouTube or just some website and then just look at some of the chords, practice those, and then just play everything mostly by ear. So I sometimes may not follow what would be the standard of music making, but sometimes that's a good thing. Depending on who you ask, like for instance, the soundtrack to Donkey Kong Country, was made by a guy who didn't go to music school or didn't have a formal music training, and it's regarded as one of the best soundtracks or the best video game music out there. Um, it's still very memorable. So not to say that that going to school and everything is not, you shouldn't do that. Obviously, if that's your path, then follow that. But just saying that that there's multiple ways to get into it. So yeah, so don't be afraid of taking a leap of faith, and taking a chance on some stuff. Like when I started doing this 3 years ago, it was kind of just hey, I want to do it. I've always had an interest in music. I've always had like a drive to do something in music, but I just didn't know, or was too afraid to start because I was afraid of failing and I was afraid of rejection. But after you do it for yourself, after you learn how to do it on your own, then that fear goes away. So just something to keep in mind. So yeah, so if you ever want to get started, don't let the fear of like, oh, my music's no good, or I'm not good enough, or people will not like it, or maybe people will say they suck or whatever. Don't let that be what stops you, because in the end, you are the one that's in control of your own destiny and everything. So, you know, don't let that be a hamper on you. So keep going, keep trying. Even if it's just for yourself, or even if it's a hobby. Like this is mostly what I do. This is a hobby for me. Like I already have my 9 to 5, and that's paying the bills. Like this is not something that I'm banking on to be big or anything like that. I do this because I enjoy doing it. And so then and essentially I feel like everybody should do that because they enjoy it. Because if you're trying to go out to make money and stuff like that, um if that's your initial purpose, then you're not gonna enjoy it. You're not gonna want to do it after, like if you don't see any growth in it, then you're just not gonna want to do it anymore. So I would say never just do it for the money, because if ask any artist out there, when they start off, there's nothing, literally nothing. You're going out on a whim, hoping people will listen to your stuff, and most of the times they won't. They won't even give you the time of day. So, being okay with being with constant rejection and stuff like that, that's something you have to learn to live with as a musician, or even as just as a creative person. Like if you're into art, if you're into painting, if you're into singing or acting or anything like that, there's so many people wanting to do it, and even though we have a great medium to do it with, like YouTube, Twitch, and whatever, there's a lot of platforms now where you can be creative and then show you off your talent and stuff like that. That doesn't guarantee that you'll be seen. That doesn't guarantee that you will be, that somebody will pay attention to it. Hopefully somebody might, but like I said, you just have to be okay with that rejection. um but so hopefully you guys tuned in, if you tuned in at all, or even if you watch this later, I hope that you enjoyed the music making process, and hopefully that you learned something from it. Like I said, I'm using Reason 11, so if you just purchase that, or just are new to DAWs in general, some of this stuff still translates to other things. The interface is obviously going to be different, but MIDI creation and like the MIDI roll and the MIDI piano, that's still in every single DAW. So you know, that's, you know, you should be able to just, you know, click in and then do what you gotta. So, you know, that there's that. You know, writing in MIDI is one of the easiest things. But you know, if you actually have music training or whatever, you know, you're ahead of the curve. You know, just get yourself a MIDI controller. Maybe not one as big as this. There's a lot of cheap options out there. You know, and that's one of the things that I always say too, is like, don't start off with just buying a bunch of equipment, because, you know, if you're not gonna use it, or if you don't have a need for it, it's just gonna sit there collecting dust, and then you're just gonna be like, well, that was a waste of money. Like, you don't have to waste money. Get you a DAW. You know, there's a lot of free ones out there. Um, there's Reaper, there's LMMS. You know, Free Loops is pretty inexpensive. There's always a light entry for some of the bigger DAWs. So like Ableton Live, there's a light version. Pro Tools, there's a light version for that, and those are free. Obviously they don't want to allow use for certain things, or they're limited in how many tracks you can put on there, and everything. But you know, there's just always something to start off with. And even if you don't have a computer, there's you know, there's a lot of iOS applications that will allow you to make music. There's a lot of Android apps out there that will let you do music. So, you know, don't let or even if you just have like a tape recorder and you just, you know, doing it old school, if you want to beatbox into it, you know, you can do that too. You know, and you get that vintage sound. But you know, don't let not having the equipment be what stops you from doing it either. So, you know, I'd say to only get the equipment as you need it, as you progress, as you grow as a musician, or as you grow as a producer and whatnot. So yeah, so like, again, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you didn't, well, I'm sorry. There's not much I can do about that. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. And then if you guys ever want to, you know, actually do get into the industry and whatnot, then, you know, just do it. Just do it. Just, you know, get in there and start off small, and then, you know, if you have friends that do it, you know, join them, or just see where you can help out, or just apprentice somewhere. You know, that there's always that. And in the music industry, or just any industry in general, there's a lot of ways you can get into that industry, but not necessarily do what you want to do. So like, even though I'm making music, that doesn't necessarily mean I'll make it out as a musician. People might reach out to me for composing, or for mixing, or for adding their vocals into tracks, or just, you know, being a producer on a track, or just editing something. You know, there's always different ways to get into the industry. So, you know, just something to think about. And hopefully, like I said, you guys enjoyed the show, and I will leave you guys with that. And peace.